Here we are.
Yeah,
Hey Trina, how you going?
I'm good, thanks, Michelle.
That's good. Well, here we are talking about having a detox, but not the sort of detox that, where you've got to drink horrible looking juice and funny stuff and not eat for a few days. We're talking about detoxing our workplaces, which you and I are going to get together and do something live in Perth next week, aren't we?
We are, and I'm super excited that you're heading west side so that we can actually spend some time with you to chat all things leadership and culture and see what we can throw up into the mix.
Indeed, yes. I'm very much looking forward to being in my hometown, seeing the family and friends, and of course doing some stuff with business and sport over there. So the event next week. So tell us, for any of you any of the folks watching and watching on catch up later, where are we going to be? So what day, what time, and where are we going to be?
So we're going to be upstairs at Kayla's Brothers in Leederville from 10 till 12 on the 8th of June. And essentially we're bringing together a group of people that really want to have a conversation around how we can make our workplaces better. And so we don't want to be drinking the Kool-Aid that you talk about in terms of detoxing, but it's similar, right? Like I think that culture space, there's so much that we can talk about. And so I'm excited to have people coming next week.
Yeah. So when we're there, there's a bit of a process. What are your hopes, dreams, and aspirations about what we're going to cover? Albeit we were just having a talk off air about how you and I are both we're happy to go with fluid kind of agendas because we're good at talking off the cuff and meeting the needs of our audience. So what are you hoping to cover for the participants?
Yeah, so within the wing it concept that we both seem to come from, I think it is around having a purpose, though, right? So I'm having lots of conversations with clients right now around culture, and that meaning lots of different things to different people, right? But at the core, it's just the way we do things around here, and that can either feel really good for people working in the organisation. It can either get really great results, or it might not feel so great, and it might kind of be a handbrake for our effectiveness. And so it's around trying to explore what you've been seeing in terms of, you're working with so many different organizations across so many different sectors. And so I think it's really, for me, it's about trying to connect with different people and get different lenses that we can kind of bring into conversations around what this looks like out there for people, because we're all only exposed to what we see, right? And so what I see is a lens through my workplaces, through my clients, through my learnings. But like with every story that's told, with every connection we make in the room, with every kind of, swapping of notes around, train wrecks that we've tried to avoid or things that we've really nailed and what impact it had, it's just so powerful. And so some of the conversations I'm having with execs, with HR leaders, with lots of different people is showing that there's a real appetite. There's a lot of people that think it's only them and that they're isolated in this journey. And so a big driver for me is trying to be like, no, let's have a conversation about this, because change comes from conversation. And so with every conversation we have, then we can kind of try and level up in terms of what's happening in our organisations. And that's where I'd like to be able to people to get to.
Beauty. So we're going to follow a relatively tried and true format, but for anyone thinking from Perth or beyond, thinking about coming along, I can assure you it won't be 150 slide pages or death by PowerPoint. It's going to be a really nice opportunity to also do one of my favorite things, which is strategic networking. And I always say networking is strategic when it's based in a goal, whether it's a personal or a professional or an organisational goal. So I think I know that you've created some really nice spaces, both in time and physical space, for us to all be able to talk. As you said, share the wins, but also share the car crashes so that we can learn from each other. That collective wisdom is so important. And I think in a safe space, I know you and I both really respect the fact that some of the matters that we deal with and the people that we are helping to deal with those matters, it can be pretty gnarly. And for people to think like, oh, is this just me? Or I wonder what I should do, to be in a safe, supportive space to be able to talk about what is a toxic workplace culture, how do I identify it, what do I do about it, who can help me with this particular circumstance. You know, that safe environment's super important, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely critical. And I think the other thing with this that I always encourage people to think about is no one's going to force you to talk, right? Like there's, you know, the interaction in any of these things is what people want to bring. Some people are in a space where they're in the listening phase of just trying to learn more.
Yep.
There's other people that might be acutely in a culture vortex around, holy crap, what am I going to do here? There's some real toxicity in my organization. I don't know where to start. And then there's other people that are just looking at performance enhancement. And I think that it's great to have all levels, all things, all vibes in the room. And I think that people's interaction, engagement, and it needs to be what they need it to be. And so I think around people really just not overthinking that.
Agreed.
You know,
Agreed.
I'm not at the level for this conversation. You are if you're in an organisation at all, or even if you are doing your own side hustle and thinking you're going to scale up. Like culture starts at the beginning, and have opportunities to get a different lens to look through that. And I think that, you know, this conversation's for everybody, and people will get out of it different things.
So speaking of that, so who have we got coming along already? Other than not the names and roles, but the type of folks that are already showing up.
It's really mixed, which I think is so awesome. And so we've got CEOs, you know, we've got people that are leading people and culture. We've got operational leaders in businesses. We've got some early career HR professional, but I'd say that a lot of it's so mixed. So we've got people coming from all spaces, which I think is at the core of what culture is, right? Because culture impacts everybody and everybody impacts culture. And so we've got such a diverse group so far, and we've sold more than half the tickets. And in the spirit of Perth always book late, that's pretty phenomenal, actually. So I would encourage people to get on board before Friday when we start, you know, trying to lean it up. But yeah, so it's really mixed. But what's been really interesting is that I have had a couple of DMs come from people saying, I'm too scared to come to this and it's playing on my mind. And that's really fascinated me. So I've had some really amazing conversations in the last couple of days with people that feel like if they're in the room, people are going to assume, judge, and label that their organisation has a toxic culture.
Interesting.
And I find it really interesting. And so if any of those people are listening, just to mirror what I've said on DM, it's not about that at all. And no one, and certainly not us, but other people wouldn't be in the room thinking that. And I think that that's a really interesting thing because that actually does tell me a little bit about the culture or the environment that person's coming from. So I think that for most people, it's like, you definitely have to come into the room, you know, just to get some different insight. But I think there's lots of people coming where it is around elevating performance. Do you know what I mean? Because it can always be better. It's the same with me with my health journey, right? Like health and my own detoxes I should be doing. And, you know, like essentially a healthy environment, it's an environment where you've got barriers against toxins essentially, right? And an unhealthy environment's where you've got toxins running rampant and leaking everywhere and then creating damage essentially. And I think culture's the same thing. I'm overthinking the detox analogy. I'll just string this out. But it's, and I hadn't actually overthought that when we were talking about the name. But, you know, it is this thing around trying to create a safe and effective way of making our environments healthier because that's where the good stuff happens. That's where the magic happens. And so people are going to be coming into the room with the culture of their organisation feeling, looking, you know, different for everybody. But there's certainly no judgment in the room. And there's certainly, I've spoken to other participants and I tested it, right? So I asked some people saying, so you're coming to this event. Are you expecting the only people who are going to be in the room are people that are in toxic environments? I'm like, no, we just want to be better. And so I think that I did test it because I thought, oh, it's really interesting. Like I didn't realise that people might look at that language and then self-select out.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? What's in a name, and what's in language. So, but I guess there's two things that have come to my mind as you've been talking that out. Is, if I think about Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great, great
Yeah,
organisations never ever stop at being great. They get stop at being good. They keep working to become great, to keep opening up the gap between them and their competition, or whatever the forces are. And then
yeah,
I suppose in all workplaces where it's somewhere on a scale of remediate, optimize, transform. We're
yeah,
all somewhere along that continuum, and certainly clients that have come to me and said, "Oh, look, let's start our diversity, equity, and inclusion journey." Oh, Michelle, we're really bad, and we're a little bit ashamed. I go, listen, there is number one, there is no organisation anywhere in the world that is 100% nailing it. So let's get that very, very clear, because it is going to be a forever journey. But everyone, every organisation and every individual in organisation starts at different places for different reasons and is at
yeah,
different levels of maturity, and that's okay, because
yeah.
showing up means you dink them. You dink them about yourself, your colleagues, and of course your organisational culture. So, it is about
Mm,
going from good to great for a lot of people. For some, it is about going, how do I remediate this situation or this culture,
mm.
versus how do we keep making it better? So you're right, it is, what's in a name? Everything. But so,
Yeah,
yeah,
but I think that that's where we'll have the balance in the room, right? And that's what our commitment is to people, is to bring the balance and the different lenses, um and to be able to make sure that people can take something away, right? Like the key thing for me in terms of bringing people together and driving events is, there's meaningful connections, there's kind of different insights, and bottom line, just feeling like you're not alone. Like this loneliness in terms of leading from the top, I
yep,
find it sad. And I'm on a quest to make sure that we can kind of really connect great leaders that are wanting to do great things. And that means being
yeah,
able to leverage networks. It means being able to leverage learnings from other people and to be able to tap into those examples so you can fast track your own kind of transformation.
indeed.
So I think,
And I guess
that's what.
that's, for people like you and I in the work that we do with our various clients, some of the role that we have is to aggregate information and help organisations not reinvent the wheel all the time. Share
Oh,
that, become that carrier of that collective wisdom.
yeah.
It's interesting you say about that leadership is lonely. It's the second time I've heard that this week, because I listened to an amazing woman, or a couple of amazing women, speak on the weekend actually. But and one of them, she talked about, leadership can be very, very lonely. Particularly the closer you get to the top, the fewer peers you have, and the fewer folks that you can really open the kimono with. So I think, this is
That we
an
think about in
opportunity
the
with.
workplace. That will
That's
lead
I
to
think.
way too many issues to deal with.
Yeah, I know. I'll probably need to think about using a different example than that in the future. But but one of
I
the other
like.
things that this particular woman said, she gave me some feedback, which was awesome. But she said, we were thinking over this last weekend we'd get entertainment or outcomes, but we got both, and that's what I figure. You and I are going to be able to give them some information, some insights, but importantly, the inspiration to go back and do stuff with some new
Yeah,
tools and some new contacts and networks to be able to do that with.
that's
Because
it.
as you said, that leadership roles can be lonely, and having, extending your network to have those supportive people that you can just bounce an idea off, or say,
Mhm.
am I going bonkers? Am I imagining this? Is so valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's the space we wanna create. So I'm just excited. I'm so
Me too.
excited.
Me too.
Um, that's why I only do events that I 100% believe in, right? Like, so I don't,
Yeah,
through Reimagine HR, it's not about just rehashing. There's enough people that are coming from different lenses. It's about, trying to be able to be in the space where I know that the energy is going to be able to add value. And,
mm,
and that's why I'm really excited about what we can talk about next week. Because I think that loneliness at the top, for example, um, shows me that's a symptom of culture. And
yeah.
so it's great for us to unpack that a little bit.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. So, one more time, where, when, how, Trina, and how do people get hold of tickets?
So next week, 8th of June, from 10 until 12 at Kalis Brothers in Leederville, we will be starting. Michelle's going to be sharing some of her stories of what she's seeing around the traps. We're going to have some morning tea and networking, and then Michelle and I will be having a fireside chat around, how we can detox our cultures and elevate performance. So tickets are through Eventbrite. The links are plastered all over Michelle and my social. So, but if you can't find them, just send us a DM and I'll make sure I can connect you in.
Awesome. All right, my friend. Well, good to talk, and well, we will. The next time we'll probably talk before then, but it'll be awesome to be in person over West and helping leaders really get it right for workplaces. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too. Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, see ya. Bye.
See ya.